to Sunday with Michael Ellis. The Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced a plan that she describes as radical action to remove foreign criminals from our prisons and to deport them. Legislation introduced by the government in June allows most foreign prisoners to be deported after serving 30% of their prison time rather than 50%. But, as I understand it, she's also announced new legislation that she intends to introduce, which would enable prisoners to be deported the moment that they had been sentenced. Joining me now is the former Attorney General, Sir Michael Ellis, obviously a Conservative. Michael, what do you make of these?
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Well, I'm afraid I think this is a stunt. It's a pure political stunt, but perhaps more importantly, I don't think it's going to work. And there are three key problems with this announcement. I mean, the first is that you've got to have a country that's willing to accept these foreign offenders. We know already that Pakistan has tried to impose a quid pro quo on the United Kingdom, if reports are correct, that flights from Pakistan International Airways would need to restart, and they've been paused for safety reasons, if they were going to accept some convicted offenders. So you've got to have a country that's willing to take their own offenders back, and Jamaica is another country that's historically been reluctant to do that. There's a lot of countries that haven't done it. So nothing in this announcement indicates that that's going to change the picture. And I think unless the British government is prepared to put some pressure on foreign countries to accept their own offenders back, it simply isn't going to get out of the starting box. That's the first point. And the way of putting pressure on might be to, as Robert Jenrick has spoken about, might be to actually say to these countries, your visas will be stopped, and you won't have tourists and business people able to come to this country, or we'll stop international aid. The sort of thing that we've seen the Americans threaten to do. But that's
I'm anxious to get on to the next 2 points as well.
The other issue, of course, is that human rights lawyers, as you know, Michael, may actually say, well, it's unfair to send them back. More accurately, it's a breach of their rights under the Human Rights Act or under Article 8, the right to a family life. And I don't see anything in this announcement that's going to stop that. And the third problem will be the issue of fairness, because let's give an example of, say, two offenders who have robbed a bank together with a firearm, for example. One is British, the other is a foreign offender. They're both convicted in a joint enterprise of robbing a bank. As I understand it, this announcement would mean that they would both be sentenced to, say, 10 years imprisonment. The British offender would serve the 10 years, or at least 5 out of those 10 years. The foreign offender could, on day one, be deported back to his country of origin. So the victims
where that offender might not serve any term.
He might not serve any term at all, and there'd be no guarantee that that would happen. And so there's a myriad of problems with this proposal.
And then the British government breezily says that people who've been expelled in this way would not be granted re-entry to the country. But that supposes that we are able to control our borders, and there's not a great deal of evidence of that.
No, and this isn't, frankly, a solely Labour government issue. We have seen for some years now that we don't have proper control over our borders, and that means that you can impose all the regulations that you want, but if someone is prepared to ignore those regulations and come in illegally, thousands and tens of thousands have been able to do so. And there's no reason to believe that if a person's been convicted of a criminal offence and they want to come back into this country, that they will they'll be reluctant to do so.
I mean, just on tiny technical point, are migrants, for example, who arrive in boats fingerprinted? Would we pick up that this was someone who'd been convicted of a crime in this country?
Not necessarily. And in fact, that's assuming that they come through in a regular means. If they come, to use the current vernacular, in an irregular means, in an unlawful way, of course there's no fingerprinting. There's no way, unless they're stopped by the authorities, there's no way that we'll know who they are. I mean, that actually is presumably going to be a very low number, to be fair, because if a person's been sentenced to a term of imprisonment and then they've been deported and not had to serve any of that sentence, it seems, to be fair, unlikely that they'll want to come back into this country. They might try and leave their home country and go somewhere else. Yeah. But what I think really is not going to work is the proposal generally, without being sure that lawyers aren't going to be able to stop it and the countries that you're sending them back to are going to receive it. And there's no evidence that any of that's changed.
The government says both that it is improving the data collection and that since the general election, it has sent back more than 5,000 convicted prisoners.
Yeah. Well, frankly, the data is all over the place on this, but what we do know is that some 12% of prisoners in this country are foreign offenders, 12%, nearly 11,000 people. And it costs £54,000 a year to house a prisoner in one of His Majesty's establishments. And so it's a very expensive thing. But what, of course, Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, is doing is trying to open up prison spaces. But I'm afraid this is a stunt that isn't going to work, Michael.
Almost a one-word answer. Do you not feel ashamed sitting there because this situation was going on under you? At least the government's trying to do something about it.
Well, to be fair, the previous government also tried to do something about it, but the reality is, for 30 years, this has been going in the wrong direction.
Thank you very much. Sir Michael Ellis, great pleasure to see you.
It comes as the government reports almost 5,200 foreign national offenders have already been deported since 2024, while Reform UK insists deportations cannot happen until we leave the ECHR. Minister Alex Davis-Jones says the government is ready to face any legal challenges. Have a listen.
We are, of course, ready for any legal challenges, but we believe that this policy is robust. We are doing the right thing here by the British taxpayer, by the British citizens, and we are ensuring that we are committed to their plan for change and doing what they think is right.
OK, that's what Alex had to say. Right, joining me now is Reform Councillor for Sheppey, Maxwell Harrison, and former Met Police Officer Chris Hobbs. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on the Sunday afternoon. Now, this is a big announcement. Deport all foreign criminals. Let's come to you first on this one, Maxwell. Sounds like a brilliant idea. What do you reckon?
Yes, it's nice gaslighting from Labour. I mean, we're used to it. He said he was going to smash the gangs, and all he's doing is smashing records. Look, there is massive popular opinion right now on deporting those who break the law, who are foreign nationals. A recent JL Partners research shows that 81% of the British public are in favour of deporting foreign criminals who commit serious crimes in this country. We've got to get rid of them, and it's simple as that. We can make savings of up to £600 million a year. Foreign criminals make up 12% of all our prison spaces, and to have over 10,000 of them in prisons right now, it is a disgrace. 2/3 of our prisons are now overcrowded. The best way of dealing with this remedy is deporting those who simply have broken the law, broken our social contract in this country, and the better and quicker we do it, the safer our streets will be.
OK, and now let's go to former Met Police Officer Chris. Chris, do you think this is a good idea?
Generally speaking, no. I don't want to upset your producer by taking the view maybe he doesn't expect me to take. But in actual fact, this sends out all the wrong messages, I accept.
Oh, OK.
Given the current crisis we've got in our prisons, that probably at this moment in time, there's no alternative. But having been a police officer who's worked here and out in Jamaica, I know what the reaction of police officers will be. What this does is to, in actual fact, give a green light to organised crime networks from abroad, who we've got a major problem with in this country. And now, of course, this is a massive selling point for when they want to bring in their soldiers, their thieves, the people who run brothels, cannabis farms and so on. Well, yeah, go to the UK. If you get arrested, it's no big deal, because all they'll do, you might spend a few weeks inside, but they'll kick you back out again. So there's no deterrent for these foreign crime networks that I say are prevalent.
So, Chris, you're saying that you sort of like come here, you'll get deported straight away, and then say if you are deported, for example, in your expertise, Jamaica, they won't be serving their time, they'll be free to reoffend?
Basically, yes. I mean, if you've got a returns agreement, say, I'm not sure whether one still exists with Jamaica, but say with Albania, and you go back and you have to serve the rest of your sentence in a foreign jail, that's one thing. And obviously murderers and very serious criminals won't be given the ticket on the plane back. No. But at the same time, for these thieves, people smugglers, shoplifters, dippers, etc., I could go on and on, who are from abroad, who come here to commit crime, that is a massive incentive to be recruited, you're not going to go to prison.
OK, interesting. That's a different viewpoint, maybe. Maxwell, what would you say to that? It's no deterrent really at all.
Well, look, I would argue that we don't definitely have deterrence in this country, but that's my point. Deporting these people is the only apt route. In the year ending March 2022, we had 3,000 foreign criminals who avoided deportation, stayed in the country and committed 10,000 further reoffences. That was 25% up from the year before. And if you take, for example, between 2018 to 2022, foreign criminals committed, again, 38,000 reoffences. So actually, removing them from this country is actually in the interest of the British public and their safety. The idea that actually it might lessen the views of gangs and whatnot, I don't particularly agree with. But again, let's go back to the right point of here. This is just gaslighting from Labour. This will not work. Adding more legislation does not mean that people who come into this country and then commit crimes will go. The ECHR will stop that. Already, we've seen in recent years 12 injunctions and 3,000 foreign criminals who rightly should have been deported never were deported because of the European Convention of Human Rights. So until we leave that awful legal framework, this is all just mere puff.
Chris, obviously the devil is always in the detail in these, and the details, as always, are quite sketchy coming from the government today. The ECHR, we keep coming back to the European Convention of Human Rights. Almost every conversation we have these days. Is that going to be an issue to stop us deporting foreign criminals?
Well, if we stay in it, it is. I mean, I can remember one Jamaican guy, and I don't want to criminalise all Jamaicans, but that's where I was working.
This is your experience you're talking from.
Yeah, and what happened there was he was deported, put on an Air Jamaica plane. They were normally very good with deportees. He kicked off big style. Captain said, I'm not taking him. He came back, spoke to an immigration officer. I listened to the conversation. And he said, I'm claiming political asylum because I'm gay. And she looked down the file and she said, hold on, you fathered 2 children by 2 separate baby mothers. And I have to confess, we all laughed at the time. But she said to me, the immigration officer said, he's going nowhere. And that perhaps illustrates part of the problem, as your other guest has pointed out, with this particular piece of legislation that we adhere to.
Maxwell, I mean, this is a reform policy, but the policy that you have is to leave the ECHR as well. Do you think you seem to be living rent-free in Labour's head at the moment? Because everything they're coming up with at the moment that makes them sound tough is taken from reform.
Well, no, of course we're living in the head rent-free. Recent polling has us at 32%, which is 12 points ahead of Labour. And on Thursday, we won 100% of the by-elections, one which was a defence, but the other 2 were wins from Labour. So, we are absolutely skyrocketing in the polls. They are terrified of our rise. And on any argument about, because what we will see is that they'll bring in this legislation. It won't work. They'll talk about Article 8 and how it needs to be tightened up. It won't work. Already, Articles 2 to 12 of the European Convention of Human Rights are integrated and accepted into the Human Rights Act 1998. There is no excuse and no mechanism for a foreign court to have jurisdiction over the United Kingdom. Until we leave that, until we leave the European Convention of Human Rights, we will see the reoffending continue. We'll see our streets being unsafer and unsafer. Maidstone Prison, 99%, yes, 99% of all the prisoners in that prison are foreign criminals. So it is a joke. Reform is living rent-free in number 10, in Labour's viewpoint in the world. But again, Lord Hermer, he will reject this proposal. And again, it'll just show that Labour are not serious on crime, law or order.
Chris, finally, last word to you, Chris, very finally and very briefly. So why are Labour announcing this when, both of you admit it doesn't sound like it's going to work? So why are they making this announcement? Is it anything to do with J.D. Vance being in the country, do you think?
Possibly, no, I'm not sure it is. I just think they think it's an opportune moment to make this announcement to appear tough on foreign criminals. But as I've just said, what it does is gives the green light to organised crime networks from abroad. Albanians, for example, their crime network controls a lot of the cocaine importation. If they want to bring in a soldier, one of the incentives they can say to this soldier to deal drugs on the streets is, well, yeah, get to the UK. If you get nicked, arrested, it's not a problem. You'll be back home and we'll look after you then. So it's fraught with what we need are more prisons, basically. That's part of the problem.
OK. Thank you both very much. So 2 sides are political and the criminal side of that, a Reform Councillor for Sheppey, Maxwell Harrison, and former Met Police Officer Chris Hobbs.